Alright, we're back, and if you're just tuning in, well, first of all, where have you been? But more importantly, we're talking about the Wendigo. Not just as myth or monster, but as something that still whispers across time, into today, into the woods of North America, and even deeper into our psychology. And now we're shifting gears a little, because I want to ask the question, Sarah, how did this creature make the leap from a tribal taboo to popular culture, horror films, and Reddit threads?
It's a fascinating evolution, Mark, because for a long time, the Wendigo was something people didn't talk about outside of their communities. It wasn't a spooky story for tourists or a Halloween costume. It was sacred, dangerous, and deeply rooted in the oral traditions of the Algonquian-speaking peoples. But as contact with settlers increased and as anthropologists began documenting indigenous myths, the Wendigo made its way into academic journals and eventually into horror fiction.
And once it crossed that line, there was no going back. It became fodder for pulp horror in the early 20th century. Lovecraft even flirted with the concept, although he distorted it, as he tended to do with everything. And then, boom, the Wendigo explodes into the wider consciousness. Books, films, even cartoons. Hell, Marvel Comics made it a supervillain.
Exactly. And while some of that might seem harmless on the surface, it really complicates things, because when you turn a sacred creature into entertainment, you risk trivializing something that still holds power and meaning and fear for the people who originated it. It's the same problem we see with skinwalker stories being used for shock value without any regard for cultural context.
But here's the thing that gets me. Even though we've turned the Wendigo into fiction, it hasn't lost its teeth. The core idea is still terrifying. It's still showing up in forums where people claim they've seen something in the trees. Something gaunt, something watching, and they're not talking about movies, they're talking about real life.
I've been tracking that too. In fact, there's a massive thread online where people share alleged Wendigo sightings, and yes, we can be skeptical, a lot of it is anonymous. A lot is secondhand, but some of these stories, Mark, they have this pattern, this consistency that's hard to ignore.
Let's share one. Can I read this one from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, posted just last year?
Please do.
Okay, so this comes from a user who claims to be a park ranger, and I quote, "We got a report of screams coming from the forest trail. High-pitched, human-like, but wrong, like a voice out of tune with the world. I went in with another ranger, and about 2 miles in, we found a deer, gutted and hung from a tree. But not by any predator I've ever seen. It was tied with roots, like they'd been woven. And then we heard it again, the scream, but it wasn't an echo. It was ahead of us and behind us at the same time."
That's classic Wendigo imagery, mimicry, unnatural death, confusion of direction, even the use of nature itself as a weapon or medium, roots, trees, snow. Those are all symbols we see again and again.
And here's the kicker. The ranger says, "We left fast and I told my supervisor, but he just said, don't go back there for a few weeks." Like he knew, like we all know something lives there, but no one wants to name it.
That sends a chill down my spine because it echoes something I've heard in interviews too, that silence is a kind of protection. People won't say Wendigo out loud. Not because they're afraid of superstition, but because deep down, they believe that saying it might bring it closer.
And here we are, saying it over and over on a podcast, broadcasting it 2000s.
Which is why we've burned sage in the studio tonight. Not kidding, folks.
It smells like a forest in here, a haunted forest.
You're welcome. Better safe than spiritually compromised.
But to your point, these sightings aren't always in remote First Nations territories either. There have been stories from upstate New York, from Minnesota, from parts of Canada that are hours from major cities. And in some of them, it's not just a creature in the woods, it's the feeling, that creeping sense that you're being watched, that you're not alone, even when the trail cameras say otherwise.
And that speaks to something bigger. I think the Wendigo is tapping into our collective anxiety about isolation, about wilderness, about hunger. Not just for food, but for power, for consumption. It's a metaphor for greed, for excess, for losing touch with what makes us human.
There's a brilliant quote I came across in a 1990s ethnography. It says, "The Wendigo does not kill with teeth alone, but with silence, with shame, with secrets that rot the soul. And I think that perfectly sums up the modern fear. It's not just about what's lurking in the woods, it's about what we carry back from the woods.
Exactly. The Wendigo is not just a monster that attacks, it's a monster that infects, that transforms, and that's why the myth still has such weight in the 21st century, because we all fear that moment where we cross a line and can't come back.
We're going to dig even deeper into that in our final chapter tonight. What does it mean to survive the Wendigo? And is there ever really a way back from becoming one?